Well, it is our 7th year in a row where Mr. Buffett has been kind enough to grant us that most important first hour of trade interview. So all of the weekend festivities for the shareholder meeting have been passing, and now people get to trade on what he has to say. First of all, we want to welcome you, Warren. We're sitting here in your Kiewit Plaza headquarters. Thank you for having us.
Well, welcome to you. Yes, I'm delighted to have you here.
I can't believe it's 7 years on Fox Business.
It goes fast.
It sure does. But this time, and we've got, of course, we're going to be joined by a bunch of special guests. But needless to say, we brought in the business schools again. You know, this was the first time we did this was last year, where we brought in business schools via remote, live. And we thought it would be great because you host business schools all the time, and you think it's important.
About 40 of them this year. Yeah.
Well, 40 different business schools.
Right.
All right, so we want to bring in our business schools.
Good.
Just so everybody can see who's with us this morning. And we want to first welcome the NYU Stern School of Business in the heart of Manhattan. Let's give a hearty New York wave to New York. Hey, guys, great to see you. Warren's excited to see you guys. Let's take it a little bit west to University of Chicago, Booth School. Hello, Chicago.
Hi, Chicago.
They're all standing there, and they are excited to see you, too. I love students because they come up with very, very focused questions, too.
Absolutely.
And finally, University of Maryland, Robert H. Smith School of Business. We take it right there to Maryland. Yeah, they came to play. Suits and ties, gotta love that. So we're going to be hearing from them. They'll each ask a question throughout the hour.
Great.
But also, Warren, we solicited questions from people through Twitter. I know you tweet at Warren Buffett, but it's kind of funny. We have these cocktail napkins all through restaurants and hotels in Iowa that had hashtag Ask Liz. And we got thousands and thousands of emails. Some of them were absolutely brilliant. Others, I mean, yeah, we had one from the mascot, Bailey, of the Los Angeles Kings, and his question was, hey, Warren, can you give me $20? So,
I've heard that question before.
Yeah. I'm surprised they aimed so low. All right, let's start.
That's high for me, actually.
Well, exactly, $5. I've never seen crowds like the crowds that I saw, and I've been coming to this meeting for 9 years. Do you have a final tally on the numbers?
We can't really get a count because they come and go and all that, but we know we were up many thousands above the previous record. So it certainly wasn't less than 38,000. It probably wasn't more than 40,000, but it was an all-time record.
It could very well be 38, 39.
Yeah, or 40 even, yeah.
I want to show people, because at 3 a.m., the line starts forming. And then when the doors open at CenturyLink Plaza, and again, this is an arena that sells out every rock act on the planet, as I mentioned, from the Eagles to Rod Stewart to Bruno Mars. But take a look at the lines. And the doors open, people start flooding in. And it's just amazing to me. I mean, it's like you're a rock star. I know that analogy has been made, but let it go to your head a little bit, and, you know.
They're coming to see Charlie.
The questions do get a little bit tough, but, you know, we could show you the inside of what it's like, because you're sort of in the center of it, and yet you probably don't feel it. We had cameras on the floor, and Fox Business has this thing called the GoPro, which gives you a very high-up shot, which is very cool. And you can see the crowds descending upon you, and you start walking through that floor. What is that like?
Well, I'm having a good time, and I know some of the people that are around, and they're Berkshire shareholders, and they're happy, and they've come from a long way in many cases. We sent tickets to 50 or so countries this year, aside from, you know, every state in the union. So it's fun. We have a good time.
But they bear down. Do you ever get nervous?
No. It's a friendly crowd. I do bring along an extra suit in case anybody throws a pot.
You can see the video, and you can. It's just interesting. We'll show it to you in just a minute. But I was amazed because Dairy Queen. You walk through See's chocolates, and you do all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And does it ever change?
No,
How do you plan that?
Well, we want to add companies from year to year. We're sort of maxed out. That exhibition floor is almost 200,000 square feet, but we may have to figure a way to get a few more feet somehow. But you mentioned deli bars. I think we had 12,000 of them, and I think they were gone.
See, John Gaynor told me 15,000.
15,000.
15,000.
Okay. Yeah. I
just don't see guys like Goldman Sachs' Lloyd Blankfein or Kaiser Sony doing this. And
well, I think I might get Lloyd. I don't think he'll pass on money, but maybe we can get him into the act.
Well, you are the one who actually makes money. Do you have some final numbers on things like the Nebraska Furniture Mart?
The Nebraska Furniture Mart will do something over $40 million in the weeks surrounding the meeting, which is more than most stores do in a year.
Well, speaking of the Nebraska Furniture Mart, you're going to be opening a huge one in 2015 of spring. And the minute I hit the ground here, the rumor that I heard was you might have that annual shareholder meeting in Dallas next year. Now, you said no during the meeting. However, what if the venue is larger, the hotels are less expensive and more affordable for shareholders? Would you consider doing it in Dallas for at least 1 year?
I really won't. I mean, it is true that physically Dallas could handle it better than Omaha, but we'll find a way to hold it in Omaha. I can't leave Omaha behind.
Well, from moving the meeting to moving the headquarters, you are from Omaha. You absolutely love Omaha. You would never leave, but the next guy who takes over may want to live somewhere else, like Iowa.
He better be prepared to be haunted by me every night. I'll come back and I'll make his night times miserable.
Well, will it be required that your successor live in Omaha?
I think the probabilities are almost 100%.
Pretty clear that Omaha would never, Berkshire would never give up its sort of corporate citizenship, but tax reasons become an issue. You know, are there any circumstances where you would actually revisit the situation in the near future that might prompt you, Warren, to revisit that Pfizer-type deal of incorporating overseas, say, for example, in the UK, where you get a better tax rate and it's better for shareholders, maybe?
No, I do not ever see that happening at Berkshire. We do very well with the tax rates that exist in the United States. You know, Berkshire has gone from a textile mill to a company with $300 billion of plus a market value. That basically happened in the United States, and it's happened with higher tax rates in the United States than exist now. So America has treated us very well.
You refused, as you always do, to name a successor. But the three names that get...
To you, I refused. The board knows.
The board knows. I'm so offended.
Well, maybe we'll put you on the board.
Listen, if I can find out who your successor is, it would be worth it. But the names that get floated are, of course, Greg Abel, formerly Mid-American Energy, now Berkshire Hathaway Energy, Ajit Jain, who runs the brilliant insurance business, and then, of course, Matt Rose, who's the executive chairman of Burlington Northern. Am I on the right track?
Well, the candidates are all internal, and I've said that they're male at the present time, although that would not necessarily be the situation in the future.
So it could change to a female.
It could, sure. I'll bet someday it does. I mean, but right now they're male and they're internal, and I think it's a virtual certainty that they'll be internal for forever.
And it will be an insider.
It'll be an insider.
Will you require your successor to follow the Berkshire way, never fight corporate taxes and things like that?
Well, I can't require anything because I won't be here. But in terms of our culture, I think there's no question that my successor will be someone that is bought in 100% to the culture. Now they'll do things their own way, and they should. But we have a distinct culture. We set out our economic principles in the back of the annual report. They haven't changed virtually for 30 years, and we're a certain type of business. It's not the only way to run things, but it is the way we run things at Berkshire. And I can't imagine a successor changing that in a material way.
You're one of the few corporate leaders who says, you know what, I pay my taxes, every bit of it, meaning Berkshire and all of that. People get touchy when you talk about taxes.
Do they ever?
Oh, they say, well, why doesn't he just write a check to the IRS if you feel so strongly about it?
Yeah, Mitch McConnell said that one day. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting theory of taxation that you take care of a $16 trillion economy by people making voluntary contributions. But I did offer, actually, when that suggestion was made, I said I would match the amount that anybody else tossed in from Congress, and I actually would triple what Senator McConnell would come up with. And actually, two congressmen came up with a little something extra.
Ooh, which one?
Well, there was a fellow in the first district of Virginia. His name's slipping my mind, but he's a very good guy. He's a Republican. I contributed to his campaign. I mean, I admired him a lot, and but I didn't hear anything from the Senate.
Would you? Yeah, those senators, they tend to have a little bit more in the coin there. Would you agree, though, it is a little bit of a negative to have high corporate tax rates compared to other nations, and then on top of it, what some believe are onerous business regulations?
Yeah, well, I get irritated with some of the business regulations, and everybody would like to pay lower taxes, and you certainly would like to see more uniformity. But you know, we are running still a very substantial deficit in the country, and you're going to get the money from someone. And corporate taxes as a percentage of GDP have fallen over the last 50 years by a very significant amount.
But they were higher under Ronald Reagan.
Well, they were higher going back all the way. They were about 4% of GDP 50 years ago, and they've declined. They got to under 2%. So the corporate sector has done fine. The corporate sector has done wonderfully in this country, including Berkshire. You know.
Let's go to a corporation of which you own 9%, and that's Coca-Cola. This was a huge topic, obviously, this weekend. You were point blank during the meeting when asked by a shareholder, why didn't you vote? You abstained from the vote on the compensation packages. And in fact, I found it interesting. The shareholder called it un-Buffett-like behavior. You said you really liked Muhtar Kent, didn't want to go to war with him, but yet you still didn't vote. You know you could have made such a statement to all corporations about excessive corporate comp.
We made a statement. But the fact we're talking about it now, I mean, we made a huge statement. And we did it without going to war, and I think it's a statement that got heard by Coca-Cola. I've had good discussions before the vote, actually, with Muhtar. I admire the corporation enormously. I think the directors are terrific. I just happen to disagree on this, and we made the disagreement known. And like I say, I think almost everybody in the country's heard about it.
Well, this brings us to our first hashtag Ask Liz question. And again, we got so many, and we thank our viewers and my Twitter followers. But this one was interesting from Ingrid Tron, who asked, what would Coca-Cola compensation packages really look like if Coke were fully owned by Berkshire Hathaway?
They'd be a lot different. And we've written about our compensation packages. We pay very well for performance, but we try to make it for performances under the control of the person we're paying. So if we were paying somebody for their performance in Canada, we would tie their compensation to the performance of Coca-Cola in Canada. And we have a lot of plans. We have all these companies that work as part of Berkshire, and they have incentive comp, very substantial in some cases, but they all make sense in terms of tying the comp to what that person can accomplish. And with option plans, of course, you know, they become lottery tickets. If you have 66,000 plus people receiving options, you know, they're nice to get. I'll take a lottery ticket. If anybody out there wants to mail me a lottery ticket, I'll take it. I'll never pay for one. And if you're going to try to incent people's performance, they have to feel there's a connection between the incentive offered and the performance that they're being asked to deliver.
And right now, those Coke compensation plans don't quite hit the mark?
Well, I would say virtually all the option compensation plans I see don't hit the mark. It's not specific to Coca-Cola. That's one reason I didn't want to come out and look like I was coming down hard on them. But their plan, which incidentally can be modified by them. I mean, all that happened on this vote was to authorize the stock. The period over which it'll be dispensed is up to the Coca-Cola company.
So a lot of our viewers own Coke. That's why we, of course, ask. But this also put you in an interesting position because your son, Howard, sits on the board of Coca-Cola. And on Thursday night, we had an opportunity in a Fox Business exclusive to ask him about the attacks you've come under since you abstained from your vote. And let's listen to Howard's soundbite, and then you can comment on that. Here's Howard Buffett, Warren's son.
When you support the management and believe in the company and believe in the CEO, you know, you're careful about what you do. And so I think he made a decision where he felt the most comfortable, and that's his business to make that decision.
And there you go. He said he stuck up for you, but does it put you in...
He said exactly what I believe, that, you know, that we registered the opposition to the plan without indicating opposition to management.
Did it put you in an awkward position, or is it a conflict of interest that Howard is the non-executive chair of Berkshire, and yet...
I mean, he's not the non-executive chair, no.
He'll be the chair.
He may become I mean, I hope that he becomes the non-executive chair when I'm not here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not pushing you out.
No, well, I felt a little nudge there, but that's okay.
Yeah. not pushing you along.
Who are you working for?
Yeah. Well, it actually, the Coke conversation awakens some tigers, activist investors, and that brings us to our first business school question. NYU Stern School of Business. NYU, are you guys ready? Get up to the microphone and give Warren Buffett your question.
Good morning, Mr. Buffett. My name is Kevin Baker, and I'm joined in the room with NYU Stern students and members of the Senior Honors Program who had the opportunity to come out to Omaha to meet you back in October. And so my question is kind of on this same topic of activist investors. You know, we hear every week of a new position taken by activist investors, and we all know the names Ackman and Icahn. You've already said in the past that the value of such investors depends on the company and the situation. And considering your decision in abstaining from the Coke vote, my question for you is: under what circumstances would you decide to take an active role, and why?
Well, it's a good question, and you might say I took an active role in Berkshire Hathaway in 1965 when I took control, but we are not looking to change people. We may be in a situation with them where they might have a little different opinion. We might hope to influence them, but we want to join with people we like and trust, and so we are very we will not be in a situation. We will not come in a contentious way. It's just not consistent with Berkshire principles.
So you and Charlie wouldn't go in with pickets and machetes?
No. Well, Charlie might, but he's you can't control him. No, but there's no reason to do it. We can find wonderful businesses run by people that we trust and admire, and why go in? I mean, it doesn't pay. You don't want to get married with the idea of changing the other party. And you hope they don't want to change you. It's just much better to find people that you're compatible with and that you like and you trust, and have a good business. So that's where you'll see us going, and you will not see us going in to change things in a big way.
Carl Icahn, and I know the NYU students, obviously mentioned him. He has a serious problem with what you did, and he feels that you engender crony capitalism at the top by not having voted. Have you talked to Carl?
I haven't talked to Carl, but I did write a small reply. Barron sent me the article that he wrote, and Carl goes into different kinds of companies to some extent than we do. I mean, and I think he kind of enjoys the game too, but we're not doing the same thing that Carl Icahn is doing.
Who would win a steel cage death match between you and Carl Icahn?
Well, Charles, as you say, Carl's a member of the Giving Pledge. We're friends. But he is looking for different kinds of companies to invest in than we are.
Well, you've got a huge Coke stock portfolio, minus Coke, which is a $16 billion holdings, right? About that. General Motors you own, DaVita Healthcare, which is an interesting play, Amex, $13 billion, $21 billion in Wells Fargo. I mean, we can put up the list here so people can see. $1.3 billion in Moody's stock still. Why do you still own Moody's, Warren?
It's a good business, very good business. I mean, just look at
even after the financial crisis, where they mispriced lots of financial instruments.
Well, a lot of people mispriced. A lot of people made mistakes then, but. We pay Moody's a lot of money to rate us, I'd like to not pay them that money. So I've seen their position, the competitive position, and, they operate in a business with very wide profit margins, very high returns on capital, and it's a business that will probably grow over time.
Is it a conflict of interest that you pay them to rate you?
Well, I wish it were, so that we didn't have to pay them. But as a practical matter, we need their rating. We shouldn't need their rating. I mean, anybody should be able to look at Berkshire Hathaway and say it's a wonderful credit. But in the way the world exists, we need their rating, and we need Standard & Poor's rating, and we are not in a position to negotiate on price. And I hate to say that on national television, where the guy listening may be the guy that determines my bill next time. But that is the position we're in.
We get a lot of questions from the Ask Liz solicitation, and a lot of them were, if I had $10,000 to start investing, if I had $100,000 to start investing. But we liked this one from Ask Liz, Chris Rittenbach. And Chris asked, What is Warren's favorite stock? I'm throwing in besides Berkshire Hathaway, because I know you'll say that. For my grandkids today, people want to help their children prepare for the future.
Well, I would say that they should buy a very low-cost 500 index fund, and they will buy a cross-section of America. And if they're prepared to hold it for their grandchildren for 20 or 30 years, they will do well.
You know, there's somebody here who's really disappointed you didn't mention Microsoft, and that's Bill Gates, Director Bill Gates, and of course, founder of Microsoft. Come on in, Bill's going to join us.
Okay,
here.
ask him the same question.
Well, Bill, I mean, can't you get him to pump your stock? And I can't say pump and dump because he never bought Microsoft.
No, I don't believe in promoting stocks. You know, even great companies like Berkshire or Microsoft, you know, Warren promotes the products, and I'd love to promote Microsoft products.
When I first met Bill in 1991, I bought 100 shares of Microsoft, and I haven't sold it. I mean, I am one of their most loyal shareholders. Never sold a share.
100 measly shares.
Well,
okay.
It's more than 100 now. They split.
Can't you get Warren, as you look ahead, to get a little more tech savvy? I mean, how's he doing? Did you give him a Surface tablet?
Warren's online playing bridge a lot, and he's pushed his companies to think about the changes taking place. Geico's been a real leader in taking the internet and actually connecting in a more efficient way with their customers, and actually finding an attractive customer base through the digital interaction. So even technology has reached Berkshire Hathaway.
And Bill's been helpful in that incident. Bill, I won't name the company, but Bill, with one of our companies, took them a long way in terms of using the internet. He realized it was hopeless to tell me how to do it and then have me relay it, so he just went direct, and it was very helpful.
Well, Tony Nicely is no young whippersnapper, but he is on it. So he of course, running Geico and doing that. You're a director, obviously, of Berkshire Hathaway. Did you think that Warren should have at least stated his opinion and voted his Coke shares?
Well, he did state his opinion, and I wish there were more people like Warren who were speaking out about executive compensation. You know, who's the second best proponent on this? And the most important thing is the example you set. You know, Warren, both for his own compensation and how he's done it in the various parts, the owned companies, I think the world can learn a lot from that.
Well, they can learn a lot from a lot of the things that you've done, because you have been arguably the world's greatest investor. But Bill, you as a board member understand that you can stand up and argue with Warren. What's the biggest argument you've ever had with him?
Well, we've never had an argument. We love to discuss what's going on in the market, which companies will do well, various government policies, what makes sense, but it's not in the form of an actual argument.
I thought you were going to argue about the time you went to China together and he just wanted to go to McDonald's every day.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah, but Bill took good care of me in China. I mean, I would not have gone to China with anybody except Bill. But it's interesting. Now, we've known each other now for 23 years, and I can't recall an argument. I mean, and we just take philanthropy, which we're, you know, I mean, a big connection in that, and we've not had an argument, and we discuss a lot of subjects, and there's subjects just coming in the car here. We picked out one we disagreed on, which we're not going to tell you.
Oh, come on!
but we don't argue about it. I respect his opinion. He respects mine, and overwhelmingly we're in agreement.
Well, don't you wish that Congress were like that?
I do, yeah, right. It's not going to be, though, Liz.
Unfortunately. Microsoft, Bill, has new leadership. Satya Nadella. The stock is up 17% year over year. It's looking healthy. But here's what we hear on the street, that you're still there very much focused on it, and that Steve Ballmer is there, the former CEO. And I guess people on the street wonder, might you pressure or stymie Satya Nadella and things that he wants to do to bring this company forward? Is he truly free to charge ahead to run Microsoft? Oh,
absolutely. He's off to a great start. He has used more of my time than was the case before, and I'm enjoying going and giving some advice. But he's re-examining all the things. He's already made some really good changes. It's exciting to have young blood, new thinking.
Well, we have young blood that is related in a way to Satya because University of Chicago, the Booth School of Business is standing by. They actually have a question for you. Satya's an alum of theirs, so let's say hello to Chicago. And what's your question for Mr. Gates?
Hey.
Oh, look, you get an applause.
I didn't get one.
Warned him, yeah.
We had to applaud you.
Let's have a read.
Mr. Gates, thanks for taking my question. My name is Katrina Duncan. I'm a second year at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, which is also the proud alma mater of Microsoft CEO Nadella. I'm a Microsoft shareholder, so like you, have a vested interest in the success of the company, though our investments may be on a slightly different scale. My question is this: do you think there's an opportunity to create shareholder value by separating Microsoft into different companies, and more specifically, by spinning off Xbox and Bing?
Spinning off, breaking up. What do you think?
Well, certainly the Bing technology has been the key to us learning how to do large-scale data centers. And Bing lets us see what's going on the internet so that as people are interested in various topics, we know what's new, we know when they're typing text, what it might mean. So I see that as a pretty fundamental technology for the company, even for its office business that's a very, very core business. We have done spin-offs historically. Expedia was a company that got started inside Microsoft, Slate Magazine did. And, you know, we're thinking about are there pieces that are separable? But our basic research, including the stuff that goes into Bing, I can't see that making sense to break it off.
What about Xbox, Bill? It is such a different kind of business. It has huge potential. It's gotten a lot of attention with Xbox One. Why not just separate that out?
Well, we're taking PC gaming, Windows gaming, and Xbox gaming and bringing those a lot closer together. The power of the PC chip, graphics chips means you can do great games there. So I'm sure Satya and the team will look at that, and it's up to them.
Would you support
but we're
him
going to have
if
an
he
overall
wanted to?
gaming strategy, so it's not as obvious as you might think.
Would you support him if he wanted to spin off?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's news. Surface Tablet. I need to get to Surface Tablet because the numbers surprised recently to the upside. Analysts, some of them had basically left the Surface Tablet for dead, and yet we turn around, we see very hot numbers, but it's costing you guys a lot of money to get those numbers. So you're spending a lot, you're selling a lot, and yet the revenues aren't quite there. When? Can you tell us when the Surface will be on the road to profitability or become profitable?
Well, we had to take a write-off because we did the versions of it in different volumes. That was about 9 months ago. Now we see that the high-end version, which actually has the better margins, is gaining share. That's the one I use and like a lot. The hardware business, you're never going to have the kind of profitability you have in the pure software business. And so understanding where our COGS are going, both for the hardware and these big data centers we're building, analysts and investors are going to have to watch that a lot more carefully than they did when we were just a pure licensing company.
Got it. Warren's nodding like he knows what you're talking about.
I don't have the faintest idea.
Yeah, no, he does.
Let's bring this back to chewing gum.
Do you even know what a phablet is?
Don't embarrass me now.
You don't. You don't.
I've got the manual typewriter. The electric typewriter is a little beyond me, but the manual typewriter I can handle.
The manual you can work with. Social media, Warren. There's a lot of stocks out there that look like they have potential. There's LinkedIn, there's Twitter, there's Facebook. Is that something Berkshire would be interested in?
Probably not. Yeah. You'd have to tell me which one is going to be where in 5 or 10 years, and I don't have a good fix on that.
That's a metric when you're investing in something.
I think. Some of them are going to do terrifically. There's no question about that. It's just I don't know which ones.
And you've only tweeted 5 times, sort of?
Yeah, I've had a person tweet for me 5 times. I've not trusted myself. The whole thing might blow up or something.
Well, while you fear industries you don't understand, you don't fear certain industries that are a little worn at the edges, like print, like newspapers. And of course, you bought the Omaha World Herald a couple of years ago, and 3 years ago when you did that, you instituted the newspaper toss. Bill, you participate. You both were newspaper delivery boys. And on the floor, of course, the the annual meeting, you were tossing away. We have video of that, and I tried. I was horrible. But, Bill, I was surprised. You were worse than I was. I felt so much better.
Oh, that's gotta be
And I don't know about that. Warren was really good. Let's just say that. He was the best of the three of us.
Yeah, we'll go to the tape on that other one.
Yeah, we'll have to show that. But where is the future of print right now, Warren? Everyone keeps saying we won't be reading newspapers.
Well, it's declining, and it declined last year, declined the year before. I mean, it is declining, and I would say that there's no real evidence of it leveling off. Mm-hmm. The decline rate is not severe in many cases. Other places, it is more severe.
Sorry to interrupt, but
Sure.
Warren, you really did throw that all the way to the doorstep of the Clayton home.
Yeah,
that was great. Mine, I sort of made it to the front step, which still means people can walk out in their bare feet and get the newspaper.
That's true. They need the exercise. You're very thoughtful, actually.
Jeff Bezos has suddenly shown interest. He, of course, bought the Washington Post. That's been a company that you're very close with. What do you hope Jeff Bezos will do?
I hope he succeeds like crazy. And if anybody has a chance to do so, I'd bet on Jeff.
Have you talked to him?
I haven't talked to him since he bought it. No, but I will talk to him from time to time. But no, I have not talked to him.
Bill, an Amazon competitor, Alibaba, which is a very interesting company, possibly may announce its IPO details this week. Jack Ma, the founder and CEO, who's a former school teacher, I mean, this is a great American Chinese story. There are entire towns in China that are built around selling things on subsidiaries of Alibaba. Do you get a sense that this is a really huge thing on the cusp of changing in a disruptive way how we buy things on the internet?
Well, Alibaba dominated e-commerce in China, and actually e-commerce in China is even bigger by most measures than it is in the United States. So Jack's led the way. He also made a big announcement about philanthropy, and so he's a pioneer there as well.
Is he joining the Giving Pledge?
Not the Giving Pledge, but he announced a very large gift to his foundation, and he's spreading the word that he thinks successful people ought to take a hard look at philanthropy.
Well, now, Warren, here's a tough one, and it's an Ask Liz question from a guy named Joe Borsini, because he's interested in Alibaba, and he says, what do you think of an Alibaba IPO, a buy or a pass?
Well, I have no idea what it should be for him. I can't recall when I bought an IPO, literally in 50 years. Maybe I have, but I don't ever recall.
Why not?
Well, it's very seldom that an IPO, by design, it is going to be priced at something I understand anyway, at a bargain price. I mean, why would a seller, come to market and offer something at a bargain time? So, in fall of 2008, nobody was bringing IPOs, but that was the time to be buying stocks, So it's never been my game to read a prospectus on something and figure that somebody's offering me a bargain. No.
Well, has it been Charlie's game ever to buy an IPO?
Well, we can ask him.
Let's ask Charlie. He comes in, and here comes Charlie Munger, the vice chair of Berkshire Hathaway. Welcome, Charlie.
Welcome indeed.
Thank you so much for being here. You know Alibaba, correct? I mean, you're very focused on Chinese businesses.
Warren knows more about Alibaba than I do.
What do you think of an opportunity like that? Is that something completely out of your realm for Berkshire?
Well, it's out of my realm.
Yeah, that's
somebody else in Berkshire will have to do it.
Charlie, we were talking about that and all that happens when it comes to new things on the cusp. 2 years ago, Fox Business asked you about Bitcoin when it was very, very much in its incipient stages, and you called it rat poison.
Yes.
Do you still feel that way?
I was holding back a little.
Even with the fact that more Bitcoin companies have come up, you still are not a believer?
That's correct. I think maybe the government should keep issuing the currency.
Do you think that it should be regulated?
I wish it would go away.
Well, this is a sort of boxers and briefs.
That's your definition of regulated, right? I'm with you.
Regulation by Charlie Munger. Just go away. Yeah. This is a sort of boxers and briefs type of question, but not really in that term. But I want to ask all of you this, because these are two companies that are two industries that are very hot and topic about right now on Wall Street. But If a gun were held to your head and you had to invest in either BlackBerry right now or Bitcoin, which one?
I'd probably short them both.
Charlie?
Well, they asked a similar question of Samuel Johnson once, and he says it's hard to determine an order of precedency between a louse and a flea.
So it's a hard decision.
Yes.
Bill, you're the one, though, who maybe looks at disruptive technology and is less fearful. What do you think?
Well, Bitcoin is mostly about anonymous transactions, and I don't think over time that's a good way to go. That is, I'm a huge believer in digital currency, and in fact, the Gates Foundation is very involved in trying to get that going in poor countries so we can have cheap financial services even for people without much money. But doing it on an anonymous basis, I think that leads to some abuses. So I'm not involved in Bitcoin.
When people say, okay, so you're not involved at all, you're not investing in any Bitcoin things. Okay, no. When people say, oh, the US dollar's going away eventually, what do you say about that, Charlie?
Well, eventually everything goes away. The earth blows up, you know, the solar system disappears. So eventually, but on any time scale that's of interest to me, I want more U.S. dollars, not less.
Are you a believer in a stronger U.S. dollar?
Well, not necessarily stronger, but I believe that the U.S. dollar will be the world's reserve currency for a long, long, long time.
One time you invested in the Brazilian real. Are there currencies on your books right now?
Right now there aren't, but we own a lot of businesses that do business all over the world. So we are affected by foreign currencies daily. I mean, we have insurance liabilities in foreign currencies, but we have no currency position at all.
We have more pressing questions than things like Bitcoin and BlackBerry, though, and that really brings us to the global landscape and what's happening right now when it comes to Ukraine. Charlie, you brought up in the meeting that the memory of Weimar Germany, where the Deutschmark was worthless, was just a horrible one and very upsetting and very deep and dark. Your comment was related to the Fed's printing of money, but it made me think of Ukraine and all that's happening right now and how awful things had been in World War II. Do you think the tides have the potential to turn to that very dark type of behavior now that Russia seems to be very focused on putting its feet and hands in Ukraine?
Well, of course, I don't know much about the Ukraine or the plans of Russia. But generally speaking, I don't like to be reminded of the Weimar Germany's inflation, which I think brought on Hitler. And I don't like to be reminded of Hitler. And I don't like modern countries trying to change borders. The United States has intervened in some foreign countries, but we haven't tried to change borders since the Panama Canal.
There's an article in the Wall Street Journal today that mentions Latvia now, that Putin might be looking at Latvia. I mean, what happens if Vladimir Putin has turned into this megalomaniac?
We've seen this movie before, and it didn't have a good ending.
Well, then does the United States need to be a little more forceful, Warren? How do you feel the administration is handling Vladimir Putin?
I don't know what goes on behind the scenes or anything of the sort, but I think it's dangerous when boundaries start getting changed. But it can set a dynamic in motion that well, really is impossible to predict. But I don't like uncertainties about things like that. So.
Well, are we appropriately handling Putin? And I say that, Bill, because, you know, if he were a business competitor, for example, and was doing underhanded things to try and take on perhaps you as a competitor, and he spun falsehoods to justify his position to undermine business interests, shouldn't something be done? I mean, bring in Mario Monti or somebody.
Well, there are things being done. You always have the question of, are you escalating the problem and getting into a negative sum situation? You know, everyone hopes that we're not going to have a situation in the Baltics, because then you have the NATO guarantee comes in.
He's worth about, if you read your form of print, he's worth about $70 billion. I mean, Is he worth more than you guys, right?
Could be.
I look at him and I think this could be a scary situation, as Charlie talks about.
There are going to be, in the next 50 years, lots of scary situations. I mean, the nature of what's available in terms of nuclear, chemical, biological, cyber knowledge, and the antipathies that some people in the world have for others. I mean, we face scary situations, and some days we're more conscious of those than others, but they're out there all the time.
Do you think there will be a chemical weapons attack sometime in the future?
Sometime in the future, yes. I just hope it's a long way off.
Me too. Back to the U.S. This interested me. You brought up driverless cars, but not in a way where it was just, oh, this is something on the horizon. You said if driverless cars hit the roads and accident rates go down because they end up being safer, that could meaningfully and negatively affect your Geico insurance unit.
Yeah, but if they really work well, they're good socially. But sure, they could reduce the cost of insurance. Anything that improves, reduces accident rates, reduces death rates, and all of that will reduce the cost of insurance, and that's basically a good thing for society.
But a bad thing for Geico.
But overall, the world would be better off if we didn't have any car accidents.
Of course, but if it got so onerous on Geico's business model, would you sell Geico?
No, we won't sell Geico. No.
Never.
No. Never.
BYD, Charlie, this is the Chinese electric car maker, which was really your idea to make a big investment in. It's known very well overseas, and what we see right now on the nightly news is pollution in China. It's so bad, they're importing bags of fresh air for people to breathe. Do you think it's beyond the realm of possibility that at some point the Chinese government might mandate that people just simply have to drive electric cars, and would that be great for BYD?
They've already started in that direction.
How so?
And that is a case where bad news for Chinese pollution is good news for BYD.
What do you think eventually happens with the pollution?
I think eventually China will decide they shouldn't be killing people with the air in their cities. I think they will intervene big time, and I think it will help BYD.
But does it hurt eventually if more and more people go to electric cars? Does it hurt Burlington Northern Railroad? A huge amount of the cargo that's on your railroad is oil, fossil fuels, Warren.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a lot of oil used, but if there's a choice about something that's good for Berkshire or good for the world, we vote for good for the world.
Absolutely.
Regardless of what's good for business.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Well, there are a lot of businesses who fight certain regulation to clean up the environment because they are protecting their own air hose, right, Charlie?
That's right.
Do you get a sense, and you did talk a little bit about global warming, and you were a little skeptical about climate change?
Well, I think there is global warming, man-caused. I'm like Freeman Dyson, the physicist. I think a lot of people pretend to know more about what's going to happen in the future. More people pretend to know than really know.
But you believe,
and they're very cocksure.
But you believe climate change is a reality, and therefore...
I think global warming is a reality, and that climate effects are quite possible. But I think a lot of the people who are howling hardly know their left hand from their right.
Bill, what do you think about it? And do we need to start? Well, I think Berkshire's
Whatever
already
you do,
done.
don't howl.
I mean, listen, Berkshire is in wind, it's in electricity, it's in coal, obviously, fossil fuels through the Burlington Northern Railroad. But is that the way to go, is spread your bets?
Well, we need new ways of making energy that are lower cost and emit no CO2. And so investing in breakthrough innovation is the part that excites me. Over a 30, 40-year period, we need a very different makeup of how energy gets created. And there are some wonderful new companies working in those directions.
Warren, I heard you kind of, not slip, but say that you had put in a bid. We were on the floor, squished in that huge media gaggle, that you had tried to get a hold of a whole part of a Chinese company, and that it didn't work out.
That's true.
What was the sector?
Well, you're going to edge in on first the sector, then the company.
I figured I'd go in the back.
Don't go there, Warren.
No, I know. It was something I thought I understood.
Didn't quite work out.
No.
You still looking for a Chinese company, maybe?
I'm looking for a company any place.
A company any place. Let's move on. Bill, you recently wrote an op-ed in the People's Daily in China calling for that nation's rich to actually help more when it comes to helping the poor. What kind of reaction did you get from that?
Well, I'm just sharing how much fun I've had with philanthropy and how it's great not only for the people doing it, but great for the country. And I think there will be some great philanthropists, including Jack Ma and others in that country. And so talking about the experience that I have and encouraging them, I focus my time on that whenever I visit China.
You've read the Thomas Piketty book or heard about it, The Capital in the 21st Century, and it makes the case that income equality is a drag on the economy. Charlie, do you agree?
No. I think Hong Kong, which has great inequality, has been one of the glories of the world. I think he's full of air.
So his solution of some kind of tax on the wealthy, global tax on the wealthy.
That's a different subject. I'm all for fair taxation, but I'm not afraid of unequal outcomes.
Warren?
Well,
I just think the world works better if you allow it.
We want to have unequal outcomes. We want equal opportunity and unequal outcomes. That's if you have equal opportunity, you're going to get very unequal outcomes. But as Charlie says, it's a different question than the taxation thing. Charlie would probably be opposed to extreme dynastic wealth, for example, but I've read reviews of the book. I haven't read the book itself.
But how do you close the income inequality gap, or can you?
Well, I am not working hard to try and close the gap. I'm trying to increase it.
Why?
I want to get richer so I can give more away.
But you guys are different, Bill. Not everybody wants to give it away. They say, I've got mine. I'm going to give it to my kids. I'll leave it to them in the estate when I die. They don't get it like you, although you are getting more people to join the Giving Pledge.
Well, philanthropy is growing, and to the degree you have estate taxes, those do mute that idea that the higher returns on wealth lead to a greater inequality.
Part of the inequality, and we see it now, is this crushing student loan debt. And John Freund of Citibank said, Liz, you ought to ask him about the Sallie Mae crushing student loan debt, which is now bigger than all of the loan debt that's out there, auto loans and everything else. Are you worried that that causes a bubble eventually?
Well, I don't worry about it causing a bubble. I worry about it causing individual problems for people to take it on. When the classes come out to Omaha, I ask them how many have significant debt, and a lot of them do. And they have made the decision that the university education they're receiving is worth taking on the debt. And I think in many cases they're right, and in some cases they're wrong. But it's a choice to be made. I mean, do you want to trade away part of your future income for increasing your skills now? And that's a good trade for many people and not a good trade for others.
Charlie, some libertarians say if we stopped offering student loans, tuition would come down because nobody could afford to pay skyrocketing tuition. What do you think of that?
Well, there's no doubt at all that the student loans being so liberal has raised tuition. That's the way a capitalist system works. Of course, people will charge more when they can get by with it. And of course, if you make a lot of student loans, the universities can raise the tuition, and they do.
Sometimes outsized to what they're offering.
Well, I think a lot of education is counterproductive, but on average, it's positive.
Warren?
Well, I'd agree with that. The student is making a decision. Do I want to indebt myself? Just like if he buys a car or a house, is the asset I'm getting worth it, and to take on the loan now? And like I say, many times it is, and sometimes it isn't.
Did you help pay for your children and your grandchildren's college tuition?
Yeah, I paid for it.
Did you, Charlie?
Sure.
Warren? Your kids are young, right?
Yeah, but they're going to have great schooling opportunities. We'll pay for whatever education they need.
Rocky Spite, another Ask Liz question that was submitted by Twitter. Do you support redistribution of wealth? Charlie?
Not much.
Warren?
More than Charlie.
Bill?
Same as Warren.
Same as Warren. Which brings us to the University of Maryland. They've been standing by patiently. They, of course, with the Robert H. Smith School of Business. Good morning to you, Maryland. What's your question for Warren?
Good morning, Mr. Buffett. We really do appreciate the opportunity to be asking you the question today. And on behalf of the other 10 University of Maryland students who went to Omaha this past weekend, we really do appreciate an amazing experience there. Thank you so much. Berkshire Hathaway appears to have three main strategies when investing in companies. The first is to buy a minority position in the company, usually through publicly traded stock. The second is to buy out the entire company. And the third is represented by the partnership with 3G Capital to buy out H.J. Heinz. We were wondering, how do you decide which strategy you use when you want to buy a company?
The question was, how do I choose which of the three?
Exactly. How do you tailor it to whatever you want to do?
We look for the best opportunity available at any given time. So if 3G would come to me today and say they had a wonderful idea, would we like to join them? The odds are very, very high. I would say yes. And whatever I was doing before, I would drop from the list at that point to be doing that. I like owning businesses over the long term better than I like owning stocks, simply because it keeps building Berkshire. But stocks are a marvelous alternative. I mean, there we have a choice of thousands of businesses throughout the world at changing prices. So stocks will always be an important part of our capital allocation activities. Buying a business outright is what we're really looking to do. And when we get a chance to buy in with a wonderful operating partner like 3G, that's almost too good to be true.
Can I bring that up, though? You went in with them on Heinz.
Right.
You provided, what, about $23 billion?
Well, we provided 12.
12 billion for the total, and then you didn't be part of the operation, right?
No, we're not part of the operation.
Okay. Does it bother you that 3G fired the man who was running it, who had done a pretty darn good job?
They didn't fire. He was going to go. He let us know he was going to go as part of the transaction.
Okay. All right. Let's call that even. But then there's been so much news about plants being shuttered, people being laid off. Look, business is business.
Sure.
We get that. But I had some shareholders walk up to me and say that left a bad taste in their mouths. They felt badly about Heinz, and they felt it wasn't very Buffett-esque.
Well, it's better if you have excess people in the company, it's better not to get them in the first place. I mean, one of the reasons we have 25 people in the headquarters rather than 500 is we only need 25. If we had 500, we'd have to do something about it. So the people that are running Heinz are running it the way it should be organized. There are plants that were in the wrong places, and there were people that weren't needed, but now they've got a business model that is perfect for the future.
The next time we all meet next year, we'll be heading right into the 2016 presidential elections. You supported Hillary Clinton in the past. If she is a candidate, will you support her again?
100%.
Charlie, do you think that Hillary Clinton would make a good president?
Well, if I had to have a Democrat, I might. I might well look on her very favorably. But, you know, I'm a Republican.
Has that ever weighed into the equation? I know, Warren, you vote not the party, but the person.
That's true. I voted for a lot of Republicans.
Right.
But I voted for more Democrats.
For more Democrats. Yeah. It's probably what makes this relationship so good. Again, things seem to be working. You guys are now beating the S&P 500. So let's just get to the fun stuff. What do you guys read the first thing you wake up in the morning? Bill?
I go onto the internet, look at the Bing news stories. I look at the Journal, look at the New York Times.
Warren, do you go online or hard copy?
And that depends. First thing I do when I come down, I may check certain things, particularly some foreign markets. And then in terms of what I sit down to read, I read at home. I read the Omaha World Herald and the Wall Street Journal because I get them delivered there. And then when I get to the office, I read the FT and the New York Times and USA Today.
Not the cereal box.
No.
Not this.
No.
No, because you're too busy going to McDonald's for your breakfast. I know you do that. Charlie, what do you read when you first wake up?
Well, I reach for the Wall Street Journal first, but I never miss the New York Times, and I pay particularly attention to the ones that I disagree with, particularly Paul Krugman.
All right. So you want to see...
I always believe in looking at the people you disagree with extra attention.
That's right. My mother always says I have to see what the enemy is doing. I was
There's a lot that's good in Paul Krugman.
I was with your children, obviously, on Thursday night with you and your youngest, Peter. He had shown me a foreword he wrote for a book that was about you by a guy named Scott Thompson. And in that foreword, Peter, your son, wrote that you're not about the look at me and all I have world, but more about following your passion. And so we had an Ask Liz question that I thought was really appropriate from someone named Ryan Barkley. At what time in your life, Warren, have you been the happiest?
I've been happy through virtually all of my life, except when the deaths have occurred. I've been lucky in terms of illness or that. So I've really, there was a period where I was very unhappy when I was 13 or 14 years of age. But during my adult life, I have really been happy, and I am very happy today.
And we were walking through Central High, those hallways, the pictures you just saw with your kids who they just feel so comfortable among themselves and with you. To see that kind of relationship with your adult children, what did you do to foster that?
I married the right woman. They had a wonderful mother, and fortunately they took on a great many of her attributes, and here are two gentlemen who can attest to that.
Charlie, what is the greatest measure of success, in your opinion?
Well, I think people try to succeed in different ways. Everybody would like to have a nice family life, or almost everybody. And a lot of people share our passion for getting to be a little wiser every day all your life. There's just enormous pleasure in wising up steadily. And as I said at the meeting, we're so lucky to be so ignorant that we have all these wonderful opportunities for improving ourselves. And they continue on into old age.
Bill,
we have massive stupidity yet to go.
Bill, what is the best way to self-educate?
Well, reading, getting out in the field and seeing the thing that you're excited about, surrounding yourself with very smart people who are interested in the same topic, challenging your point of view, bringing lessons from other domains into the thinking process.
Warren, as we finish up, I worry about you because you ate for breakfast on Saturday a creamsicle bar and then about a pound of C's peanut brittle.
More fudge, actually. It's true. I mean, when I see fudge, I can't stop.
Okay. Well, stay healthy, all of you. We so appreciate you joining Fox Business on what is now the 7th annual meeting of the richest minds. We really love sharing this with our viewers. So thank you.